I got a text over the weekend from an old friend, and he asked if I knew of any services that were good for debt consolidation. And my first response was just to text him real quick, no, don't do it. And then I thought, you know what, I should call him and explain, because something like debt consolidation I think sounds really good. And after the conversation, I wanted to do a piece because I thought it was pretty valuable. One, the idea of debt consolidation, at least how I originally took it when I was younger, was why wouldn't I do that? I've got four credit cards or multiple cards where I'm in debt. I could take all of those, bundle them together, and pay a lower interest rate, which means a lower monthly payment. That sounds like a good thing. The reality, though, is one, a lot of times they market a low interest rate just to get you in the door. It doesn't mean you have a fixed interest rate for the entirety of your loan. A lot of times they get you into low interest rate and then it starts rising, and then before you know it, you're paying the same interest rate you were paying before. So remember, low interest rate doesn't mean for the entirety of your loan. Two, when you're in debt, your goal should be to get out of debt as quickly as possible. And debt consolidation isn't actually a step to get you out of debt quickly. It's putting you in a position where you're in debt longer. And that's something that we just don't think you should be in. Debt, being in debt is brutal. It's like jail or bondage. So kind of our belief is you should put together a strategy that gets you out of debt quickly, not puts you in debt over a longer timeline. And then three, which is kind of on that point, I think a lot of us feel like, oh, by doing a debt consolidation, by consolidating our debt, that's our first step towards eliminating debt, but it's actually not doing anything to eliminate debt. To eliminate debt, you've got to put together a plan and a strategy to get you out of debt, and it usually starts on the behavioral side. There's usually a case where we don't have control of our spending, or we don't have a budget, we don't know where money's going, and then we don't put together a plan reflecting that to actually help us get out. So real quick, I think it's a much better strategy to, we talk about a budget. You need to create a budget so that you can free up money on the spending on discretionary items so that you can put that towards your debt. In this case, since we're talking about consolidating debt, we're assuming that you have multiple cards. So let's say you have 3 credit cards. And there's 2 strategies to do this, so hopefully it won't get too complicated. The numbers standpoint, or what the financial advisor would say, is pay down the highest interest rate first. So if you have 3 cards, the 2 cards with lower interest rates, just pay the minimum on, and then put everything you can towards the card with the higher interest rate until it's paid off, and then continue doing that on the second, and then continue doing it on the third. But what's fascinating is studies have showed that by paying off the card with the smallest amount, regardless of the interest rate, you have a higher success rate of accomplishing, all 3 cards until you're finally out of debt. And I think it's because we feel encouraged when we see progress. And if you take the card with the smallest amount and you eliminate that card, it's like very reassuring for us to go, oh my gosh, this is working. I'm seeing change. And then what the studies have shown is more people end up going all the way to the finish line of getting out of debt as opposed to paying the highest interest rate first. And I think that's like something to remember. Yeah, you might save more money by paying off the highest interest rate, but if you don't accomplish the goal of getting out of debt, I don't know if it's worth it. So keep that in mind. But remember, debt consolidation is not a plan to get out of debt. And our view, get out of debt as fast as you can.